Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story.
Chapter 8. Paulina entered the control room of Starbase Eurasia. The mighty space station orbiting the planet Muspelheim hovered majestically, its cannons and shield generators ready for any possible attack. Admiral Raven Blackwood was already waiting for them. The cyber enhancement on her arm shimmered in the light of the holorecords that filled the room. Admiral Romero. Blackwood nodded curtly. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Admiral." Paulina returned the greeting. "What do you have for me?" Blackwood activated a projection. The image of an unknown spaceship appeared on it, its outline strangely organic and yet of an almost mathematical purpose. The ship has been assigned to the non-menace, Blackwood explained. "Our sensors detected it in the Raijuhan system." Paulina scrutinized the holography. "A highly developed technology, not a ship of the Empire, right?" Blackwood nodded. "Our analysts suspect it is a previously unknown species reconnaissance ship. A threat, then?" Paulina crossed her arms. Indeed, Blackwood activated more data. "The ship is equipped with advanced cloaking devices and weapons systems. It could be a harbinger of a major invasion." Paulina frowned. "What do you suggest? We need to observe and analyze the ship more closely." Blackwood pointed to the holorecords. "At the same time, we need to strengthen our defenses. Starbase Eurasia would be the ideal location for that." Paulina nodded slowly. "With the Imperial shipyards, we could quickly upgrade the fleet." "That's exactly what I was thinking." Blackwood activated a status report. "The Starbase is currently at Star Fortress level. We have plans to upgrade it." Paulina scanned the data. "That would be a huge cost. The Senate won't be thrilled, I know." Blackwood folded his arms. "But in the face of this threat, we have to act. Before it's too late." Paulina was silent for a moment, then nodded decisively. "All right. I'll inform the Senate and secure the funding." "Thank you, Admiral." Blackwood smiled. "Make the preparations." Paulina left the command room, her face serious. The threat of this unknown ship worried her. If the Almorans were about to invade the Empire, they needed to be on the way to her shuttle. She contacted Sevia Heimber. The Impreatrix needed to know about this development as soon as possible. Paulina stepped up to one of the enormous transport steel windows of Starbase Eurasia. Through the thick glass, she could see the planet Muspelheim in all its impressive yet frightening splendor. The planet's surface was a hell of fire and lava. Huge volcanoes spewed glowing ash into the atmosphere, which was torn apart by constant storms. Here and there, Paulina recognized the outlines of mining facilities clinging to the surface like parasites. Ostromine Industries, the powerful corporation that controlled most of the mining in the Empire's territory, had stretched out its tentacles here. Paulina knew that the company played a key role in supplying the Empire. Without its resources and production capacities, the Empire would be in trouble. But Paulina also had concerns. The growing influence of the corporations, especially Ostromine, worried her. Too often in the past, they had put their interests above those of the Empire. And now, with the Almoran invasion looming, she had to ensure that the corporations remained loyal and did not abuse their power. Her thoughts were interrupted when a message sounded on her communicator. It was Sevia. Paulina activated the device and heard the solemn voice of the Impreatrix. "Paulina, I have just received your report about the unknown ship in the Raijuhan system. This is indeed very disturbing." "Indeed, Your Highness," Paulina nodded. "We urgently need to strengthen our defenses. That is why I have ordered the upgrade of Starbase Eurasia." "Good." Sevia's voice sounded strained. "I will convene the Senate immediately to release the necessary funds." Paulina hesitated briefly. It won't be easy to get everyone's approval. Some senators will certainly be critical of the high costs. "I know," Sevia sighed, "but we have no choice. We have to act before it's too late." Paulina nodded resolutely. "I will do everything in my power to secure the funding." "Thank you, Paulina." Sevia's voice softened. "I know I can count on you. The connection ended and Paulina looked back out at the blazing planet of Muspelheim. She had to ensure that Astromine made its resources and production capacities fully available to the Empire, and she would have to fight hard for this if necessary. With a determined step, she left the window and initiated further measures to defend the Empire. Sevia Heimber entered the small conference room in the east wing of the Imperial Palace. The room was sparsely furnished, an oval table made of dark wood, 6 chairs, and a holoprojector system in the middle. The windows were darkened so that only the soft blue light of the holoprojections illuminated the room. Johanna Fritsch stood up as the Impreatrix entered. The diplomat wore a plain grey uniform with the discreet insignia of the diplomatic. Your Highness, she greeted Sevia with a slight bow. Johanna, Sevia nodded and took a seat. I need all our information on the aliens in the Raijuhan system. Johanna activated the holoprojector. Above the table, an image of a strangely organic-looking spaceship with mathematically perfect lines appeared. The Nun Menace, as we call it. Johanna pointed to various parts of the ship. Our sensors detected it for the first time 3 days ago. The design is completely unknown to us. Sevia looked at the ship closely. Material composition, mainly an alloy that we can't identify. Johanna zoomed in on the outer hull. The surface seems almost reactive. It adapts to the environment. Some kind of living technology. Possibly. Johanna switched to another view. What worries us most is that the ship has advanced cloaking devices. We could only detect it because it briefly failed to mask its energy signature fully. Sevia frowned. Have we made contact? We transmitted on all standard frequencies. Johanna shook her head. No response. The ship remained in a stable orbit around Atlas for several hours and sent data continuously. Where is this data being sent to? That's the worrying thing. Johanna projected a star chart. The signals are being sent to a sector far beyond our known space, beyond the Raijuhan sector. Sevia leaned back, her fingers drumming lightly on the tabletop. What is your assessment, Johanna? Are the strangers a threat? Johanna hesitated. I'm not a military expert, but the way this ship operates secretly without communication, with advanced cloaking technology, suggests reconnaissance, possibly military in nature. Spies, then. That would be my guess. Johanna nodded. The question is, why now? And why the Raijuhan system? Sevia stood up and stepped to the window. With a wave of her hand, she lifted the blackout. Outside, the capital city of Xanadu stretched out in all its splendor. Have we sighted similar ships in other systems? Not yet. Johanna deactivated the holoprojector. But if they have such advanced cloaking technology, they could be anywhere. Sevia turned around, her face serious. Norris, we need to know more about them, their intentions, their technology. Assemble a team, the best xenolinguists, anthropologists, and technicians. Johanna turned the holoprojector back on and viewed the alien ship more closely. She zoomed in on the outer hull, which shimmered in the projection's blue light. Our xenoanthropologists have analyzed the construction in more detail. Johanna pointed to the geometrically perfect structures of the outer bay. The construction strongly suggests a heat-adapted species. Sevia tilted her head. Explain. The heat radiation is remarkably efficient. The entire outer shell functions like a complex cooling system. Johanna's fingers slid over different areas of the ship model. These grooves and channels aren't ornaments. They serve to regulate the temperature. Such a design would be vital for a species adapted to extreme heat. Interesting. Sevia looked at the model with renewed attention. Are there any comparable designs in our databases? Nothing even remotely as advanced. Johanna shook her head. And there's something else you should know. The ship has disappeared again. Sevia looked up. When? 18 hours ago. It explored the entire Raijuhan system. Every planet, the asteroid belt, even the dwarf planets on the edge. Johanna projected a trajectory. Then it suddenly disappeared. No hyperspace signature, no jump gate activation. It was just gone. Did they try to communicate with us at any point? No. Johanna shook her head. Despite our repeated attempts to contact them on all known frequencies, there was no response. They ignored us completely. Sevia stepped back from the window and sat down again. As she thought, her fingers drummed a quiet rhythm on the table. An alien species exploring our space without making contact. She looked directly at Johanna. That could mean anything from scientific interest to preparations for war. I'm leaning towards the former. Johanna said a warship would hardly have carried out such detailed scans. The data collection was thorough, almost scientific. Sevia nodded slowly. Nevertheless, we must be prepared. Johanna, please continue to lead this situation. Assemble a team of experts, the best minds we have. I want to know who these strangers are, what they want, and most importantly, whether they will come back. Understood, Your Highness. Johanna deactivated the holoprojector. I will take the necessary steps immediately. And sometime later, Sevia turned her gaze over the park's rugged beauty. A narrow path meandered between the low, tough plants to the private lake. Steaming geysers regularly broke through the frozen surface and shrouded the surroundings in a fire. Nadine was already waiting for them on the shore. Her grey order robes almost blended into the pale sky while the massive gas giant Odin loomed on the horizon. Mother. Nadine's voice sounded as cool as the wind sweeping the mud plain. Nadine. Sevia stepped closer. The frozen ground crunched beneath her feet. I was hoping we could talk in peace. About what? About your plans to open our realm to strangers. Nadine pointed to the sparse plants around her. Can't you see how perfectly life here has adapted to this world, without any outside influences? The thick leaves of the ice flowers shimmered in the sun's pale light. Their deep roots ran through the frozen mud like a complex network. Those plants only survive because they support each other, Sevia replied. Just like we need allies. The helix teaches us another way. Nadine crossed her arms. Isolation has made us strong. We should avoid the other realms, especially those strangers in the Raijuhan system. The hot geyser thundered through the silence. Clouds of steam swirled up between them. Isolation will weaken us, Sevia replied. Look at the history. Even these hardy plants here have had to adapt and evolve. You don't get it. Nadine's voice became sharp. Any contact with outsiders threatens our genetic purity, our culture. The helix will not allow that. The helix should guide us, not restrict us. Sevia pointed to the massive gas giant in the sky. How Odin protects us but doesn't hold us captive. You sound like a heretic. Nadine took a step back. Her eyes sparkled with anger. The realm must seal itself off. No compromises. Sevia looked at her adopted daughter. Years in the Order had changed Nadine and made her more challenging. Where once there had been compassion, she now saw only dogmatic strictness. The helix should serve the people, not rule them, Sevia said. A gust of icy wind made her robe flutter. You go too far with your demands for isolation. I'm going too far. Nadine's laugh sounded bitter. It is you who are betraying our sacred principles. No. Sevia's voice became cut. I will not stand by and watch the helix become a tool of oppression. Remember who you serve. You serve the people. Sevia stepped closer, her eyes boring into Nadine's. And if you ever overstep your authority again, I will personally intervene. Is that a threat, Mother? Nadine's hand clutched her staff. A reminder of your duties. Sevia did not flinch. The helix was not founded to harm humans. Should you forget that, I will remind you, with all the means at my disposal, you would go against your daughter. I will stand against anyone who harms our people, even against you if I have to. Another geyser erupted, but neither woman flinched. They stood facing each other like two immovable rocks in the icy landscape. Early evening of the day. Johanna von Fritsch entered the diplomatic department's conference room. The holographic displays already showed the first analyses of the alien ship. Her leading xenoanthropologists, Dr. Maria Chen-Yu and Dr. Casimir Prodan, were waiting. What do you have for me? Johanna asked, sinking into one of the ergonomic chairs. Maya activated a three-dimensional representation of the ship. Design indicates a highly developed civilization. The organic shapes blend perfectly with geometric precision. The design is highly efficient, Casimir added. The hull seems to dissipate heat particularly well. We suspect a species that has adapted to extreme temperatures. Johanna studied the images. What do you think of their social structure? The mathematical perfection of the design indicates a highly structured society. Maya projected further analysis. Probably hierarchically organized, with a strong focus on technological progress. Interesting. Johanna leaned forward, and their communication patterns. The ship didn't send out any signals, said Casimir. That could indicate a reserved, cautious culture, or they may communicate in a way we don't yet understand. Are there any signs of aggressive intentions? Maria shook her head. It's hard to say. The weaponry is sophisticated but defensively oriented. They could just be being cautious, or they're testing our reactions, Casimir interjected. The methodical approach to reconnaissance suggests an analytical, planned approach. Johanna evaded her datapad. Create a complete Senna profile for me. I want to run through all possible scenarios, of course. Maya began entering data. We'll pay particular attention to cultural markers and potential communication channels. And don't forget the psychological component, Johanna added. How are they likely to react to different diplomatic approaches? Casimir nodded. We'll also analyze their technological capabilities in more detail. That could give us clues about their social development. Casimir activated a new holoprojection. Images of the ice planet Raijuhan Atlas flickered through the room, crystal-clear pictures of the icy surface taken by surveillance satellites. The Nun Menace landed here. His hand slid through the hologram and marked a position near the equator. They deployed some kind of probe or exploratory drone. Johanna leaned forward, studying the thermal recordings. The landing zone, directly. Casimir enlarged the section. The drone melted through the ice. The surface temperature within a radius of 20 meters rose to over 100 degrees Celsius. Maya stepped closer to the projection. Can you see that? The drone's movement patterns consistently avoided areas below minus 50 degrees, as if it had trouble with the cold. Johanna murmured. Casimir nodded. The drone left a trail of melted ice behind it. Our analyses show that it constantly radiated heat to keep its systems at operating temperature. That supports our theory. Maya projected comparative data. This species from a hot planet would show just such adaptation difficulties. Their technology is probably based on high-temperature superconductivity. The drone spent most of its time taking soil samples. Casimir showed more footage. But look here, it was susceptible to temperature changes. With every colder breeze, it immediately retreated to warmer zones. Johanna observed the drone's movement patterns. How long did it stay on the surface? Just under 4 hours, Maya replied. Then it returned to the ship. It's also interesting. The landing zone was sterilized afterward with concentrated heat energy. It's as if they didn't want to leave any traces. Johanna leaned back in her armchair and rubbed her temples. The holographic projections cast bluish shadows across the room. She stood up and nodded to Maya and Casimir. Thank you for the thorough analysis. I will evaluate the data and get back to you, please. The walk through the cool corridors of the government building gave her time to think. Her footsteps echoed off the high walls. As a heat-adapted species with superior technology, the diplomatic implications were enormous. Neurons in her private office, she dropped into the soft leather armchair. The evening sun of Kasach cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She activated her neural interface and called up the most important points of the analysis. Her stranger's methodical approach, their caution, and their advanced technology all suggested a highly developed civilization. However, their apparent difficulties with low temperatures could be an essential starting point for negotiation. Johanna stood up and stepped to the window. The capital city stretched below her, a sea of lights and shimmering towers. She watched the traffic flow past as she ran through various diplomatic scenarios. A gentle breeze brushed through her hair as the climate system regulated the temperature. The strangers would probably prefer warmer environments, so she made a mental note to adjust the environmental controls in the diplomatic facilities accordingly. At her desk, she activated the communications terminal. The data collected had to be evaluated, and recommendations for action had to be drawn up. A first contact would require careful preparation. Dr. Gabriel Santos leaned back in his air-conditioned office in the Ecosphere Tower. The holographic displays in front of him showed sensor recordings from an alien ship. His fingers drummed on the polished tabletop. "Fascinating," he murmured, enlarging a section of the recordings. The geometric precision of the ship's design surpassed anything he had seen before. The hull seemed to be made of a material that not only kept heat out but stored it. Another display showed temperature measurements from the landing probe. Santos's eyes widened as he read the values. Within seconds, the drone had heated the frozen surface of Raijuhan Atlas to over 100 degrees. The computer analyzed the energy signature. New diagrams appeared. The probe's energy values were far above what Kasach technology could achieve. Even more interesting were the patterns of heat radiation. Perfectly regulated, as if heat were not just a byproduct, but an integral part of the technology. Santos activated his datapad and retrieved more data. The diplomatic source had done a thorough job. He had access to all of Polemi's sensor readings. "High-temperature superconductivity," he whispered, scrolling through the analyses. "They're not just using the heat." The recording showed how the probe systematically avoided colder areas. Below minus 50 degrees, it became sluggish, almost lethargic. Santos leaned forward. His fingers flew over the hollow keyboard as he made note. A heat-adapted species with this technological superiority. The possibilities were enormous. Their material science had to be centuries ahead of human science. Santos projected a three-dimensional image of the ship onto the wall. The hull gleamed metallic, perfectly shaped for maximum thermal efficiency. No welds, no joints, as if it had been cast from a single piece. Computer comparison with known alloys. The analysis ran for several minutes. There was no match. The material was unknown, presumably a composition that developed its optimum properties at extreme temperatures. Santos rubbed his chin. Ecosphere had been working on heat-resistant materials for terraforming projects for years, but this was a whole new dimension. The door to his office opened with a soft hiss. Santos hastily deactivated the displays. The data was too valuable to share with others, at least whenever Wong entered Santos' office with energetic steps. Her tall figure was reflected in the tinted windows through which the setting sun's light fell. "Gabriel, the project leaders are waiting for your clearance for the next terraforming phase on Loki." Santos deactivated the last of the holographic displays and turned to her. "The mycelium experiments." "Exactly. Lisa Weber's team has delivered promising results. The modified strains survive even at minus 80 degrees. Just show me the data." I have projected a series of graphs in the air. Blue curves showed the survival rates of different mycelium variants under extreme conditions. "The strains produce amazing amounts of methane and other greenhouse gases," she explained. "If we deploy them on a large scale, it could speed up the terraforming process by years." Santos studied the figures. The results exceeded his expectations. "What about control?" "We built in safety mechanisms. The fungi can only multiply within a narrowly defined temperature and pH. Cost 30% under budget." Ava smiled thinly. "The automated production facilities are working more efficiently than planned." Santos nodded approvingly. As always, Wong had the numbers under control. He would release the next phase, but step up the monitoring. "I don't want any surprise." Of course, Ava made notes on her data pod. "One more thing. The helix has raised concerns again. Genetic manipulation and all that." Santos snorted. "Let them. Without our technology, they'd still have influence. Ava warned, especially since Nadine Heimber stepped up her campaign. The Impreatrix will keep them in check. Santos activated another screen. Focus on the project. Leave the politics to me. Dr. Elias Stern stared at the E.K. Ptolemy's sensor displays. 2 new signatures had appeared at the system's edge, utterly different from the non-menace ship they were already observing. Dr. Stern rubbed his tired eyes. The sensor data of the 2 new ships was fundamentally different. Captain Sauer, take a look at this. He pointed to the holographic projection. The first ship, massive armor, reinforced shields. The hull is made of an alloy that can withstand extreme cold. Tanya Rodriguez scrolled through the analysis data. The weapons are designed for close combat, like a predator. Precise. Dr. Stern enlarged the image. The entire design is reminiscent of reptilian anatomy. Staggered plates, heavy keel. A warship through and through. Lieutenant Garcia pointed to the second ship, but this one is completely different. The slender, almost fragile structure floated through space like a jellyfish. Large, translucent membranes surrounded the central hull. Hardly any armor. Dr. Stern shook his head in disbelief. The hull contains organic components, and look at the water reserves. Almost a third of the mass. Mammals. Captain Sauer stepped closer to the hologram. Your life support systems indicate this. Dr. Stern analyzed further data. High humidity, elevated oxygen levels, an aquatic or semi-aquatic species, but completely unprotected. Rodriguez much as if they weren't expecting any enemies, or as if they are very sure of their superiority, Garcia added. Dr. Stern watched as the 2 alien ships held their positions on the edge of the system. The reptilian warship radiated pure aggression, while the aquatic ship seemed almost peaceful. 2 completely different evolutionary paths, he said quietly. 2 fundamentally different approaches to space travel. Andrea Soro stroked her hair and looked again at the holographic representation of the alien ships. We will continue our mission. Dr. Stern continues to monitor the activities of these visitors discreetly. Rodriguez set up additional passive sensors. Understood, Captain. Rodriguez's fingers flew over the control. Autonomous sensor platforms are already repositioned. Good. Andrea turned to Lieutenant Garcia. Status of the ice ring analysis. The deuterium concentrations are exceptional, Captain. We've found similar patterns in 3 different segments. Dr. Stern took his eyes off the alien ships. The distribution is too regular for a natural formation. Someone has been systematically mining here. Show me the structures, Andrea demanded. Garcia projected a detailed map of glowing dots marked the deuterium deposits, connected by faint lines. A triangle, Andrea murmured. Perfectly equilateral. The artificial remains we discovered earlier, right in the center, Rodriguez added. An old mining station, perhaps. Andrea studied the data. The arrangement's geometric precision left no doubt about its artificial origin. Dr. Stern prepared an expedition to the remains. But stay within shuttle range. Captain, Rodriguez hesitated. The aliens could interpret that as an aggressive act. That's why we remain transparent. Andrea activated the communication terminal. Keep transmitting our sensor data to the FIPI outpost. Let them see that we have nothing to hide. The tension in the control room eased a little. Andrea knew her crew trusted her, but the mysterious visitors had made everyone nervous. Rodriguez, you will accompany Dr. Stern. I want your technical expertise in analyzing the remains. Andrea turned to Garcia. You have the bridge. Keep the shields activated, but the weapons deactivated. Show our guests that we're here with...
Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my